shy, introverts rejoice. If the thought of making a video, Instagram reel, or a TikTok, whatever the heck that is, if that makes you sick to your stomach and you'd rather have a root canal without anesthesia, you're going to love this upcoming episode. Let's go! Hey everybody, how's it going? Russell Westcott here. So hope you're having yourself a wonderful day. In this upcoming episode, I had an opportunity of sitting down with an incredible real estate investor, Mr. Daniel Borkowski. If you haven't heard of Daniel Borkowski, that has been by design. Daniel keeps a very low profile, but underneath the surface, he has built a sizable real estate portfolio. And in this episode, we go deep into how to build a real estate portfolio without being out there on social media every single day, shooting videos and TikToks and dancing and pointing at things on the screen as bubbles appear of words. If that isn't your style, you're going to love this upcoming episode. And on top of that, we discuss how to overcome the fear, how to structure your deals, have your investors keep coming back for more, and how to have location freedom while operating this business. Truly operating your business from anywhere in the world. If you feel you're a shy introvert and you don't want to put it out there to the world that you're a real estate investor, this will be an episode you will come back to often. All right, let's get after it. All right, welcome back, everybody. Russell Westcott here, outside in beautiful, well, not quite outside. It's so close. We can just see it. There's a canal going through here. Beautiful sunny day out here in Airdrie. And a good friend of mine, Daniel Borkowski, opened up his home for us today to come on in. And you know what, Dan, how long has it been since we've seen each other? First of all, guys, Daniel Borkowski, everyone. Dan.
Hi there.
Give me some skin there, brother. Good to see you. How you doing, Dan? It's been a long time. How long has it been since we've just chatted?
I think about 2 years now.
Right.
So yeah, life just flies by.
Well, and we just ran into your lovely wife and two beautiful children. They were out going to the splash park, so we may have to get wrapped up on this quick so we can go put our shorts on
go
too.
Join them.
Yeah, go join them. So we're gonna have some fun today in today's interview. As I don't know if quite the camera can see it, but up top there are these 3 awards up top on this mantle that shows that Joint Venture Partner of the Year and Co-Venture of the Year. So Dan knows what he's talking about when it comes to joint venture partnerships. And this is going to be a little bit of a different interview than what we've had with a lot of people, because sometimes people think that you need to be, the most outgoing, gregarious extrovert, and you just need to go and be on social media, and you need to be, look at me, to attract all these joint venture partners. Right. You take almost the exact opposite approach, don't you?
Completely opposite approach.
You're a hard guy to get a hold of. Right? You were telling me that I'm not on Facebook. I rarely go on Messenger. I check my emails once a week, and the only way to get text is maybe text me if you have my number.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm yammering on here and I'm talking a lot. So I first wanted to thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
And before we dive into a lot of the nuts and bolts of the agenda that I want to cover, maybe give people some perspective and maybe some context about who you are and where you're from. One of the things that we're doing here is I'm introducing you to a lot of people that you may not know, right? And Dan is probably one of the ones. He slowly and quietly have built quite a real estate portfolio, and we'll get into some of that if you feel comfortable sharing, whatever you feel comfortable. But maybe just give us some backstory about where you are and who you're from and all that kind of wonderful stuff.
Thank you, Russ.
Yeah.
So my name's Daniel. I grew up in Manitoba and moved to Calgary in 2006 when the boom was happening. I quit my job and came here to invest in real estate and thought that I'd be retired the following year. That was around the time when the market stopped. So
yeah, the land of milk and honey soon dried up.
Yeah. So that's when I started my investing career. I've been self-employed for the past 12 years. Solely real estate is where all my income comes from, and it allows me to live the life that I want to live, spend time with my family, and not have to report to anyone or be on anyone else's schedule.
Right. So it can be done that you can live off of a portfolio of real estate.
Yes.
Lord,
Not immediately.
Not immediately, yeah. So
my first year I had a negative tax return. So I had expenses but no income.
Right. Well, that's typical actually of most buy and hold portfolios. Now you actually do things a little bit different than just a straight buy and hold. So what is your background? What was the career that you had left before that?
I was in IT. So a lot of computer stuff. And I got scared when I was at the lake one day. I was chopping wood and my hands felt like they were cramping up, and I didn't know if that's because I was on the computer, on the keyboard too much. And at this time I was in my early 20s, and it really freaked me out. And I thought I don't want to do computer things anymore because I like being outside, and here I am trying to be outside and my hands aren't cooperating. So in my mind, that was tied to being at a computer, and I thought it's time for a change.
Is it carpal tunnel type a little bit, or is it?
It's gone, whatever it was. But
it's being allergic to working.
Yeah.
So you, okay, well, there's many places I can enter the conversation. So in order to live off of your portfolio of properties, how many properties do you currently have on the go right now?
I think I'm involved in about 77, 76 stores, something like that.
Yeah, 70. So, okay.
I don't manage all of them. I have other partners for different types of investments.
So in some cases, you're actually the money partner on some properties. So,
yes.
So you actually have a perspective of the whole realm of joint ventures from both sides of the fence.
Exactly. And I think that helps me with my partners because I know what it's like being on the other side of the table.
Yeah. And 77, and you were just sharing with me, like one of the things you focus a lot on is rent to own.
Yes.
How many properties do you have on the go right now with rent to own?
I believe I'm down to about 7 left. I'm slowly selling them off. A lot of them have extended to my advantage for several years, and the cash flow on rent to own is phenomenal. So that's not a bad thing. But I do have some 6-year deals going on now that were originally 2, but due to life circumstances, market circumstances, they just carry on. If everyone's happy with the way things are structured, then it's a great cash flow and you can live off of that.
Right. And you were saying some of them are like $1,500 cash flow to you, give or take.
On average, $1,300 to $1,500 a month.
Yeah. And 7 of those, that's what is that? 12, almost 12 grand, give or take type of thing. You can live off that, right?
Keep in mind there's partners, so that gets divvied up, but yes.
Well, that's actually one of the reasons why we're going to really dive into the conversation is, so based on your best estimation, how much capital have you raised over it's 12 years you were saying, right? Since you kind of dove in full time.
So it's a couple million. I don't know an exact number, but it's definitely down payment money. It's been a few $1 million that I've raised.
Right. And hopefully not cash calls, but there's probably been a few of those of late too.
I've never had to do a cash call.
Hang on, is there a lightning bolt going to come down there? Really, congratulations. That's fantastic.
You talk about rent to own, and because the cash is so great, one of the things I've done now is I keep a 4 to 6 month reserve fund on all my properties, minimum. And there has been 1 or 2 properties that have dipped down, but I was able to fund them myself for short-term loans, so I didn't have to go back to my investors. So I guess technically there could have been a cash call, but I chose to be the cash partner and
put it in yourself
and give an interest-free loan to the investment. I know everyone has a different viewpoint on that, but someone very smart said to me once that when you're raising money initially, you're selling the investment to somebody, and that's what they're expecting. And everyone's circumstance is different, but is it really fair to come back to that person and say, you know what, I screwed up? It's not always the person screwing up. Sometimes the market really makes it awful for you when you have to do these things. But if you try very hard and to do everything that you can minimize a lot of that. And it may be keeping a lot of money in the bank account so that you don't pay out those funds and you have a lot of money to dip into if times are bad.
Yeah, and that person who said that would, I think it almost quote word for word was, you ask somebody to buy into it once, you don't ask them to buy into it every month.
Exactly.
Right? And I think I know who that person was. I'm actually interviewing Arlen this coming week as well. So that's who said that. You probably heard or from.
You know, he did say that. I was thinking more Greg Habstrit.
Oh, yes.
But Arlen said some pretty phenomenal things too.
Whatever happened to Greg? I haven't heard anything from Greg. Sorry for time out here a little bit, guys. Greg, he opened up a bricks and mortar vet business.
A portable vet business that comes to your house. And I don't know what he's doing at the moment. I think he's moved on to something else now, but I'm a little out of touch, but very smart guy.
Phenomenal.
What I learned in my real estate career, and I'm sure you can still get a lot of his audio. It's phenomenal if you can grab a hold of the recordings that he's done in the past. And
sharp guy, fantastic guy. He was actually, it was quite a loss when he moved on to a different industry. That means there's greater opportunities for other people to step up.
Everyone has to move on and do what they want to do.
One of the things is, in a lot of conversations I'm having with people, the whole conversation about fear, and the fear of talking to people about money. Did you ever have that fear about bringing up a subject of money with people? And first of all, did you have that fear? And how did you ever get past that? Obviously, you got past it if you were able to raise capital from people.
I had it. There was another really smart investor who you probably remember, Tony Peters.
Yes.
He had a great acronym for fear, and it's false evidence appearing real.
Yes.
And that made a lot of sense to me, that, what you're afraid of doesn't even really exist. And I've done a lot of fearful things in my short lifespan. I've jumped out of an airplane 15,500 feet. I've bungee
with the parachute on.
With the parachute. Bungee dive into water. So you actually dive down into the water on the dip, and whitewater rafting where we bailed at the top of the rapids, and just not smart things, but I've done a lot of fearful things. So I think you just have to do something that you're afraid of to prove to yourself that you can do it. And then, talking to someone about money, it is false evidence because the person on the other side of the table has a problem and you're there to solve it. So you're afraid of helping someone, and that's not really something you should be afraid of. It's something you should be geared towards.
Yeah. Well, if you actually think about it, in essence, the fear is an internal thing.
It is 100%.
The other person is not fearing you talking to them about money.
Right.
As a matter of fact, they probably are looking for an answer and looking for a solution, and you not talking to them about it, you might be doing them a disservice.
Very true.
Right? You're a solution provider.
It's probably only the close friends and family that you targeted initially that are fearing you because you were so awkward when you, not you, but I'm thinking back to me. You say the wrong things, you go with the wrong approach, and then maybe they do fear that conversation because you didn't listen to a guy like Russell saying this is why you want to do it, and find out what that problem is that you're trying to solve, and don't sound greedy. Just, is there something I can help you with, and change the conversation.
Okay. Now I'm going to talk about, so of the money that you've raised, how many joint venture partnerships have you worked with over the dozen or so years?
I keep it pretty small. I think I've got 6 main ones that I go to.
6 main ones, and then some other ones maybe that they've done ones that there's no longer active anymore, things like that.
A couple one-offs. What I prefer in my ideal world is to have few investors, but investors that are very qualified to do a lot of deals, so that you're not reworking the formula on everyone. I know it's not easy to find people that have deep pockets and great qualifying abilities. So sometimes you have to start off in a different place. But I know of one investor that built 100 property portfolio with only one other person's money, and that's phenomenal. And it doesn't get much simpler than that. you figure out how to make this one guy happy, and he keeps writing checks. So.
Well, you just took, I was just about to, I hope you guys heard that. So 77 places, you generate an income from the portfolio without, having to have a JOB. Not that you don't do a lot of work. I know you do lots of work for it. And with half a dozen investors. So guys, you don't need to have hundreds. You don't need 25 joint venture partnerships. You just need some good quality ones that you actually have some really good deals with at the same time. Okay. Right. So how do you find, and I'm going to take this a different direction in a second, but how do you find your money partners so far?
That's a good question, because again, this is going to be different for everyone, but when I used to try to find money partners, I didn't find any. That's when I was scaring people off, I guess. So what really happened is, like you said, everything, fear is all internal based. So is confidence. And I really worked on myself, a lot of self-development. I had hired a coach. I found I was comfortable in my own skin. And I think that's what comes across to other people is, this guy is good at what he's doing. He's very comfortable. He's confident. He's not asking for my money. I want to invest with him. And that's the way that I don't know if it was luck or that's how, the formula works. But once I started doing good deals with one investor, and I was very confident in what I was doing, and other people were noticing, then they do start to come to you and saying, how can I invest with you? So it's more of an law of attraction, which I believe in a lot. It's not for me. And like I said, everyone has a different approach, but I don't sit down and do presentations with people. I've never had to. I've been fortunate to have people come to me and say, I know what you're doing. I like what you're doing. You seem like a smart guy. I trust you. How can I invest with you?
Right. So you don't, some people will, and I teach this too. Some people, you need to teach people to go out and, become the expert and, post videos and do a whole bunch of things on social media and Facebook and, here's my deal and here's the deal and here's I'm rocking and rolling and I'm shaking and baking and stuff like that and be out there. Some people, you have to do that. Right. You just had really good deals, and through your network of doing deals, people would just see, I like what you're doing. I like who you are. I like your family and all that kind of wonderful stuff. And they just said, can I invest with you? Did you ever tell them I'm looking for investment partners, or did they just, or they saw that maybe you were dealing, or?
I didn't tell people that I was looking for investment partners, but I would let them know that I invest with partners. So I would always make it clear when they say, what do you do? I invest in real estate, but I don't do it by myself. I raise money from people that are too busy to do it themselves or whatever the reason is. So I would let them know who my partners are as part of the conversations. And I guess part of that is so that I don't sit here and say I own so many doors. It's like, but I only own a percentage of that. And maybe that's back to the confidence. But I think that helps in letting other people know that, okay, here's not this rich, successful guy sitting there with a lot of money and he's doing really well. I like them to know that I do that by helping other people so that they'll start the conversation if they're interested.
Right. So you subscribe to take amazing care of the people that you have.
Right.
And they will tell people like them, and those people will eventually come to you from that as well. And there's nothing better than a referral from a happy client and happy investor, because that's the whole qualification process is almost done when somebody comes to you from your investor. They've come to you from that one investor who's already happy. They're just going, well, what's the process? How do I write you a check? Right? Exactly. No presentation required.
That has happened to me, a fantastic referral. But the person who did the referral, how they became an investor was back when I was getting started. I did used to have a pro forma that I would carry around with me, and I was bringing it to an event to show to someone, and someone else that I was talking to just saw it in my hand and said, what do you have there? And I showed it to them. They're like, oh, that's interesting. Can I keep that? And I said, sure. And I thought nothing of it. So we both went our separate ways. And a few days later, I got an email and it said, I really like that deal that you handed me. How can I invest? It almost my socks almost flew off my feet. Because I
Was
wasn't.
that one of your first ones? That was one of your
It was
first
one
ones?
of my first external joint venture partners
Outside of family,
outside of
right.
my family.
Yeah.
And I didn't ask them to invest. I just gave them a piece of paper that they asked for. I didn't even think that they might be interested. I thought that they were unapproachable as a joint venture partner, honestly.
Yeah.
So that
Was it an active deal that you had on the go, or was it something you'd already bought?
it was something I already bought. So it's funny. I actually had to go back and say, well, thank you for your interest, but this one's no longer available. I can
look at it closed that. You closed them right on the spot.
I can let you know when the next one is. And then I led it into what are you looking for and what type of investment, what type of returns. But I think it worked out in my favor that I didn't have the deal anymore. And now I could kind of figure out what are they looking for. And
Wow. So I tell people this all the time is always have a deal on the go. Right. And even if you don't have a deal on the go, have a deal that you maybe have done that you can show to people. And even if you don't even have done a deal, have a deal that somebody else has done that you would like to have. Like, this is my bread and butter. This is the deal I want to do. And this is the kind of example. Like, have an opportunity. Right.
Exactly.
People get attracted to that opportunity. So really almost the antithesis, easy for you to say, antithesis of all the teaching. Sometimes some of the things I teach is, make sure you become an expert. No, make sure you're out there in the public and you get the attention and things like that. Yours is just slow and steady. Do the deal, get unbelievable referrals, and then just keep doing deals with people that have come that are already happy.
Right.
Right. And more than enough properties can transact that way.
Right. Exactly. If you get the right partners, then I always wanted one partner per deal. I know some people have raised a lot of small chunks of money for one property. I think that would be an administrative nightmare, but I mean, you have to do what you have to do. Yeah. So if that's how you're going to put your first deal together or your second, or if you like a lot of admin, then great. But that's not me. I don't like admin. I like spending time with friends and family and not doing all the admin side of the.
But I imagine with an IT background, you probably have a very process-driven mindset with a lot of things.
I've systemized a lot.
Yeah.
So that
and we're going to get into that. We'll definitely get into that. So I'm going to just do a quick reset of the cameras here. So everybody, we're just here with Daniel Borkowski, and we're just getting started, guys. We have a lot of things we're going to cover in this next segment. We're going to dive headfirst into how you structure your deals into different splits, and maybe if there's ownership structures, maybe some of the processes. And the number one thing I really want to have a conversation with you, and we'll probably do in this next segment, is I've heard your follow-ups program and how you follow up with your investors is almost legendary. So I want to dive headfirst into that, okay? All right. So we're just going to reset the cameras and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Russell Westcott here, Daniel Borkowski. So just kind of in the first segment, we just kind of outlined some of the context and suffice it to say, you know what you're talking about when it comes to this. And that's, I'm actually very, very intrigued about how you structure your deals and also your follow-up because, I'm going to be honest, my follow-up is not the greatest, right? I actually had a really good follow-up system for a while when I first got started. And then once it's got to too many partners and I was, 17, 18 different partners, I think it was a maximum of 24. So I know the pain of having too many partners.
Right.
I slowly stopped following up with them on a very regular basis, which was a downfall, which is a mistake. I actually admit that that's a mistake. So let's get into structures first. So your primary mode is a rent-to-own model. So maybe why don't you start with that why don't you share how you just structure your rent-to-own with the tenant buyer, maybe how the deals work, how those deals look, and then how you structure those with your joint venture partners. Maybe start with there first.
Okay. So there's a few different rent-to-own models. The one that I fell in love with is the tenant first rent-to-own model. Mm-hmm. A very smart guy from Ontario, Mark Loeffler, has a phenomenal system that he's wrote a book about.
And we joked and we called it the eHarmony of real estate is where you went and you found the person. Sorry, you keep going.
No, that's good. So I based my model off of Mark, and then I learned probably 5 or 6 other models, and I mashed them all together and made something that I liked and wanted to work with. My main goal was having my work, my real estate, not interfere with my lifestyle. So I wanted a system that works from anywhere in the world, can work without me, and is highly profitable and does not take up much of my time. And again, I mentioned Tony Peters. He used to talk a lot about toilets and tenants, and I didn't want to have to deal with the terrible T's, as he called them. Not that they're terrible, but I just wanted none of that.
There's another name I haven't heard for a while. Is Tony still around, or what's he been doing?
You know what? He was the first rent-own guy that I ever knew.
Yeah. Did you ever do any of the Ron LeGrand training way back 2003?
Yes, I learned that's ton from Ron. His office still emails me. I know he doesn't. He's one of the guys who I learned that doesn't touch email. So I kind of respected that he had 2,000 plus doors and has never sent an email. So
yeah, it was funny. I saw Ron LeGrand, phenomenal. He's such a character too. I actually saw him do a Facebook Live the other day.
Oh wow!
And I thought hell had frozen over. As you know, Ron doesn't like technology too much.
Right.
So I thought, and for him to do something like a Facebook Live, I thought was quite phenomenal. So anyways, you structure. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
I was going off on a tangent there. So tenant first means that they come to me. So I like that model. The other variant is property first, where you find a property and then you have to find a tenant that loves it and wants to buy it. That model to me looked like a lot of work. The tenant first, you just basically sit there and wait until the tenant applies, and you screen applications, or you filter, you pay someone, whatever you want to do, and you deal with the people that you want to deal with. And if there's no deals to deal with, then you have no inventory, you have no risk, you have investors on the sideline waiting, but you can be out on a paddleboard all day, you can do whatever you want. You wait for the deal to come to you, and that's how I wanted to structure it.
So technically, you only buy a house when you got somebody who's going to buy it from you.
Exactly.
You actually don't get in the front door until you actually know somebody who's going to buy you on the back door.
I have an agreement to sell it and money in my pocket before I've ever bought it.
Before you even bought it.
So
wow, brilliant. And you attract those tenant buyers through a website?
That's through a website that is all SEO, search engine optimization.
What's the name of that website, if you don't mind?
Home Visions Canada.
Home Visions Canada. So the guys don't go spam it and fill out the form and all that kind of stuff, only unless you're serious about things like that. But I think it's a fantastic model to go take a look at what you do.
Yeah,
How many leads do you generate from that site?
Oh, a day. There's been times where I would get 10, 20, 30 applications a day. They weren't all good. And I tried my best to have the application filter out people and not allow, Ron called them suspects and prospects, but to not allow the suspects through so that you're only dealing with the prospects, but they still sneak through. So the ones that actually would fill out the form, and that was their only way of contacting me. There's no phone number. There's no email address. If you want to deal with this company and they don't know it's mine, fill out the form and let me know everything about you, and we'll decide if we're going to contact you. And that may sound rude, but I'm very protective of my time. And I did start it differently at first. I had a phone number, I had email. I would call every single person back and try to respond. And I can't help you, but here's a suggestion. And you can only be so nice before you have no time left in your day for the things you want to do. So now I only respond to the ones that I want to respond to. And I make sure that that's my exact target before we ever have that first conversation.
Right. So somebody lands on your website and you optimize it through search engine. Do you do any like paid Facebook or that kind of stuff? Or
I've never paid for marketing.
Never paid for anything. So it's just all organic search of somebody searching. Somebody searches. What's your key search term that you kind of like to optimize for? If it's a secret, you can say it. That's fine.
Yeah. It's not a secret. Yeah. I just don't even know.
Okay.
I just know it's working right now, so I don't touch it if it's working. Why?
So if somebody just goes in their house for
if you type in rent-own Alberta or any of those common, and I apologize, but I registered about 40 of the best domain names at the time, so so they all redirect to my website. So if you're trying to think of a good catchy one. Most of them have been.
Most of them, if you want to buy it, if they want to buy it, you can pay Dan some money for it, and maybe help you out with that.
That was That was to limit competition, obviously, because Google doesn't really care what your website is anymore, but they used to. If your website was rent to own Calgary and someone typed in rent to own Calgary, they would come to you. Now, search engines don't work that way anymore, so it doesn't really matter. You could be Tom's Boat Shop and have a rent to own business, and people will still find you if your website is designed properly. It doesn't really matter what the name is.
Right. Okay. So someone hits on your website, they go through an application process, then you only get back to them after they probably have filled an application, and you probably have a couple autoresponders and just...
Autoresponders, a lot of FAQs, anything that anyone would ever ask me. If I thought it was appropriate for other people to know, I would add it to the website. So it became an informational base where they could spend a lot of time learning what they're getting themselves into and hopefully answer every single question that they had. And if they did have a question that I didn't answer, I would make sure to add that to my website so that other people won't bug me with the same question. Honestly, it was all about protecting my time.
Yeah. And then, so it took time. It took time
Right.
to protect your time.
To build, initially.
And then you get them. So let's say you find somebody, they pass all your top 4 things you need to see on the application. What do you look for out of an application that would get you to pick up the telephone? Or do you pick up the telephone?
I would, it depends. If it's a very, very, very good applicant that I don't want to lose, like someone coming, I did have one person come to me and they said, look, I understand what rent to own is. I know your model. I think we're a good fit. And they tried to sell me on why they'd be a good fit. And they were amazing. They had an annual income combined of over $250,000 a year. They had, I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars to put down as a down payment. They had really good employment income, not self-employed. They checked off every single box. There was one thing, I don't remember what their issue was. I think it always comes back to credit. So it must be something credit-wise, but they basically said, we're your perfect client, and they were. So I picked up the phone and I called them. Yeah. Otherwise, I might email and say, ask a few questions or try to arrange a time to talk. I have been out of the country quite a few times talking to these people if they're a good fit. Not that I spend my vacations looking for them, but I have some of my best deals. I've been in Hawaii, California, Florida, and I've put together those deals while I'm sitting on a beach or getting ready to go do something really fun with the kids. So I'll spend the 5 minutes then because I don't want to lose that one person. But
Now, truly, we could spend an entire interview hours just talking rent to own if we wanted to too. But quite frankly, what I would highly recommend is you check out Barry McGuire and Donna's program on rent to own, which you're part of too.
And I have helped them with that, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, and I would highly recommend if that's the route you want to go down. But I want to really keep talking about how money partners fit into this. So you got a tenant buyer, they qualify, they put up a down payment, and that actually helps you with your joint venture partners too. So now you take this, you got a qualified tenant buyer, and then you're going to go out shopping for a house. Do you find a joint venture partner before you go shop for the house, or do you have one waiting for you, or what's the next step kind of on money partners?
So when I was just starting, I would have the client first, and I would be trying to find the money partner. Then once you have money partners and you don't have enough deals, they kind of sit there and they're mad at you when you don't have deals to
the money's getting itchy. Right?
So everyone's starting at a different place. So initially, yes, I did send people out and I was trying to sell that deal to money partners. But if you have a really good deal, it kind of sells itself. So you mentioned using the client's money. So I'll give you an example. So bought a house or the tenant buyer wanted a house worth $450,000. They had, I believe, $30,000 to put down. So 20% of the 450, a partner typically would need $90,000, except that 30,000 is already coming from the tenant buyer that wants to lease to own this house, rent to own. So I really only need 60,000 from that money partner. So right away, I have to, the way I would structure it is I would raise the 90 and give them 30 back. So they're already getting a huge return on their money before we even own the house.
Right. Now, do you, is the 90 just 20? That's 20%? Do you add a little bit of contingency and anything on top of that, or is it just the 20%?
When I do rent to own, because I'm getting so much money from the tenant, I don't build in the contingencies because I'm also collecting the first month's rent in advance, which is going to be a couple $1,000s. I've already got the 30,000 or whatever it is from them. So I may wait 30 days until the second month's rent has come in, where the first cash flow check has come in, so that there's a reserve sitting there. But I don't raise an extra reserve initially because I have all this extra money. So I may send the 30 to my investor 30 days after, once the tenant buyer has built up their own reserve. But
so you do kick back the amount of money the tenant buyer puts in back to your investment partner?
I do, in trade for equity position in the deal. So I own a much larger share.
Okay, yeah, let me back it up a step. How do you, so you get them to put the money, who qualifies for the mortgage?
The investor qualifies.
The investor qualifies, the investor puts the money. And what's your split after? So guys, if you follow the program, I teach that there's really only 4 variables. There's money, mortgage, management, and mastery, right? So in this deal, your money partner is putting the money and the mortgage,
right,
and you're doing all the work, and you're the expert. This is your system, right? So, and now how do you split that?
I try to target the ROI that I want the investor to see at the end of the day, and that's typically low to mid 20s is where I try to hit for their return on investment. And usually I can split it where I own 75% of the deal, they own 25%, in order for them to hit that low 20% ROI at the end. And
the reason being, I would imagine, is because you're able to give back a good portion of their down payment. So they're only getting in for 60,
right?
As opposed to 90.
So their ROI is calculated on the 60 because that's all they technically invested. So they're getting back a return based on a $90,000 investment, but they only really invested 60. So,
and I imagine, I have a feeling I know what they do with that money they get back. They probably can't wait to redeploy it back in again. If they're getting 20% on their money,
right,
they're probably quite tickled pink to keep giving it to Dan.
I have one investor who's bugs me all the time. He's like, so when are we doing the next deal? Why aren't we, I got this money sitting here. And so it becomes a problem finding good deals. I always heard that, and I thought it was, I didn't believe it. When I didn't have my first money partner, everyone says, oh, once you find them, your problem will be finding deals, not finding money. And one day it changed for me, and I was like, oh my gosh, they actually were telling the truth. I thought it was just some fairy tale, like when pigs fly kind of thing.
I'm laughing because I tell that to people all the time, that there will come that day when you will say, you know what, they were right. There is, you actually have more money waiting than you actually have deals in things. So really it comes down, and good for you for not taking advantage of that. Right, of putting the money that you have. Some people may take that money and just put it into a crappy deal.
Right.
You won't compromise the quality of the deal, because quite frankly, with 6-7 money partners, one bad deal, it has a big ripple.
I actually filter. I didn't initially, but I started filtering my money partners too, because you're in a relationship with this person. You don't just want the money. You want to know that you can trust the other side and have a relationship with them, and it's someone you want in your life. So you have to be careful whose money you're willing to accept. And there's been a lot of times where I've turned down money because I just didn't think we were a good fit. And
the easiest is, the last criteria is the check.
Right.
If you really think about it. There's a lot of decision criteria before that. So you really do a 75-25 typically. Is that kind of your typical split?
That's what I did for the last half a dozen or so, yeah.
Do you take a fee? Like, do you do admin fees or acquisition fees or distribution fees, or do you pay yourself it all along the way? So all that cash flow comes back. Let's say you said there was $1,500 coming from one rent own on a monthly basis. Right. Do you take a wage out of that, or pay yourself, or does that get split?
No, we just do an equity split. So if I own 75%, I'll keep 75% of that $1,500 and give them the remainder. but I will not take a portion of the initial, in that example, $30,000. That all goes to the investor.
Right.
So on the books, technically now they owe me 75% of that. That's the way my accountant records it anyways, because technically that money came into both of us, and now I've let them hold on to a portion of my money. But going forward, I need the cash flow to survive and feed the family. So I'll keep my percentage of that going forward.
Yeah, and you know, it's okay to make money off of your real estate portfolio, because quite frankly, I think your money partners would be upset if you had to go get a job and you couldn't take good care of their money. They would be going, geez, well, I'm not going to be able to get 20%. You know, I'm going to only get 12 on return on my money. Right. So that's a good thing that you can actually go out and do that. So how do you, paperwork wise, with your money partners, do you have just a straight joint venture agreement, or do you have a couple other different agreements that you have in place, or do you try and keep it fairly simple?
So with my joint venture partners, I try to make it as easy as possible for them. So I have an agent agreement, which allows me to negotiate on the purchase on their behalf. So I'm their agent. They have to obviously meet with the lawyer and do the final signing when we purchase, but all the realtor stuff, that all goes through me as their agent. So I take that away
what's
from...
What's an agent? Just, pardon me for interrupting them. People are going, just what's this agent agreement? What is an agent? Because you're not a licensed realtor or any of those kind of things.
So it's more of limited power of attorney type, that type of agent.
So essentially, if I was your money partner, I'm qualifying for a mortgage and I'm putting the money up, I'm giving you permission to make decisions on my behalf. Is that kind of...
Right. It's very specific, and it basically says, I, Russell Westcott, appoint Daniel Borkowski, my agent, for the purchase of a property for... I'm sorry, I don't remember all the details, but it's very specific to buying a property and being able to negotiate on the property on that person's behalf.
Would you?
And it was drafted by a lawyer.
Yeah. Are you okay to share that? Would you be able to share that?
Sure.
Sure. I don't want to put you on the spot in front of a camera. It's funny. I often have to be mindful of. I'm sitting there putting somebody on the spot, and then but you can say no if you want to. Don't worry.
No, it's. I didn't. I got it from. I did a deal with a lawyer, and he actually didn't want to deal with the purchase end of things. So he said, why don't I just make you my agent and you deal with it and let me know when I have to go sign the papers.
To myself. Get someone to help stamp me on paperwork.
So that was something that they were trying to protect their time, and I appreciated that, and I loved it, and I thought, well, why don't I simplify lives for all my investors, and I'll do all the negotiations and signings, so that there's a lot of back and forth when you buy a property, negotiations, and I didn't want them to have to be the one relying on. And before I had this agent agreement, I had another joint venture partner who was very hard to get a hold of. And he actually lost his cell phone when we were negotiating on a deal. So my realtor is calling me and saying, I can't get a hold of so-and-so to sign this paper, and I can't get a hold of them. And it was a nightmare. And I thought, never again. So then along comes this appointment of agent agreement. And I thought, oh my goodness, this would have saved so much headache had I had this on my last deal.
Yeah.
And it works on selling too. So I can negotiate on the sale of the property so that on their behalf. So they will only have to go in and do the final signing at the lawyer's office, but it works both ways. You don't have to be a joint venture partner of someone to be their agent. It's just,
right.
It just gives you a very limited power of attorney based on whatever it says, and it can be revoked at any time. And then,
your money partner has to go qualify on their own merit to purchase. They have to go do all the things they have to do to get the mortgage and all this. And essentially, they're the owner because they are the owner. Their name is on the title. They're the owner of the property.
They're buying it, so they would fill out their name as the buyer, but I would sign Daniel Borkowski as agent for Russell Westcott. And then I would attach the agent agreement to the purchase contract, and the banks and lawyers look at that and they're all fine with it.
So it's no problems with things at the moment that you're aware of? Or, because I know banks have, with the changes, some of the changes and things like that, the third parties, banks have got their knickers in a knot a little bit over those things.
I've never had a problem with that one because it's like I said, it's a very simple power of attorney type thing.
Yeah.
Lawyers will not let me go in and do the final signing. They'll say that's not good enough for land titles and for the banks, but for negotiating on the contract, they don't seem to mind.
Okay. And then you have a joint venture agreement on top of that as well?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a very detailed joint venture agreement that, again, like I did with my rent-own model, I took every joint venture agreement I could possibly find, read them all, understood every single term, mashed them all together, and made something that fit for me and my model.
Right. And you know, that's how you make agreements. Really is you take different templates, and I'm part of the program. I'm providing lots of templates for people to take a look at. Some from the Law Depot, some from this person, some from a guy from BC, some from a guy from Ontario. Read them, understand them, and then what happens is each deal, something different comes up. You add a new clause, or you just deal with things as it comes up, and then lo and behold, you have a wonderful joint venture agreement.
Right, and it's always being improved. I don't have the same agreement that I started out with, because you'll learn something that, oh, I should have done this, or you hear something from someone else and you'll say, I need to protect myself, or I said the wrong thing, that's not what I intended, or so it's a constant improvement. But I guess one of the things you asked about selling the deal, like presenting the deal to someone, I know my agreements more than anyone else. And I've dealt with people who were like, oh, it's just, read the joint venture agreement, but they don't know what's in it. They don't understand it. They don't know what they're asking you to sign. Like, I think you have to own that.
Yep.
You have to know 100% better than anyone else every single agreement that you're involved in. So that's your lease option agreement, your rental agreement, your purchase agreement. Like, you need to know every single clause, even in the area contract. Wow. In my opinion, you should know exactly what you're getting someone else involved in if you're using their money and their qualifying ability, their credit.
That's one of the things you bring to the table, is your expertise in the agreements, that the other person does not have that, and they don't have to learn it. So Dan, you're just busting through a whole bunch of myths here. That's easy for you to say again. You don't have to have a big giant social media presence. You don't have to be shooting videos every single day with things. You don't have to have hundreds and hundreds of followers, right? You just, with 6-7 partners, you have created your income. Another big myth is everybody says, they go, well, 50-50. I'm scared if somebody says, well, what are you doing for your 50% of the deal? You're telling me it's a 75-25 split. Do you have anybody ever question that?
I have. And then I just show them the numbers, and I'm prepared. So I have a worksheet that shows this is what I'm doing, this is what you're doing. And on their side, it's actually it's important, but it's very small. It's put in the money and qualify for the mortgage. Yep. Whereas the investor side is huge, and I obviously make it that way. And I think I learned that from you, actually. It's probably your T-chart, right? It's probably your template. But then I also analyze the deal, and I show them exactly why I think it makes sense this way. And I'll show it to them that, if I take 75% of this initial option money and we do the deal regular, this is what your numbers look like. And, it's a better deal for them to have more money in their pocket so that they can go invest it again, and quicker in and out, the velocity of money, I like to call it. And
quite honestly, is you're known for something and you have a niche system of investing, and that actually is a benefit to getting money partners too, because you're known for it, right? And you actually have a really cool story you can share with people based upon those things. Very cool. So we're just busting myths left, right, and center here, guys. And I'm just going to do a real quick another reset of the camera again. We are going to get to your follow-up for your follow-up and your investor communication, all that kind of stuff. But man, we could sit here and talk forever. So this is Daniel Borkowski, and we'll be right back, guys. Okay, welcome back. Got our glasses refreshed here. Got some new ice. It's a hot one out there today. Dan, you're looking quite sharp in your Hawaiian shirt. You mentioned Hawaii. That's kind of your go-to place too, isn't it?
Anywhere hot and tropical.
Anywhere hot and tropical.
Hawaii, California, and Florida are kind of my three favorites.
Yeah, and you just mentioned California, and there's some exciting news that you're going to be sharing with us here in this next segment too.
There sure is.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that. So we've covered an awful lot of ground here. We've covered a lot about, your fear about or lack of fear. So guys, Dan didn't say that you have to go jump out of airplanes.
No.
But it doesn't hurt, right? Just proving those things. It's a mental game, right? It's mindset.
Tackle your fear.
Right? How you structure your deals, how you have your money partners approaching you, how you got your first deal, and how referrals happen from all that. So, and then also how you structure your rent to owns and having all those wonderful things as well. The one thing I really do want to talk, so two threads I want to talk next is number one is about your follow-up and the reporting that you do for your money partners. And then the second one is, how do you design this whole business around your lifestyle? You mentioned it a couple times that you want real estate to fund your lifestyle, not be your lifestyle. And I was not joking that you were a tough guy to get a hold of. I did go to your website to try and find you. You cannot find a phone number there. I finally had to track you down through Facebook, and it was a couple weeks before you replied. And you truly do live it's family first, and you don't some people is the grind and just nose to the grindstone at every moment. You're just flat out and working your tail off. You don't subscribe to that model, do you?
No.
And we're going to talk about that. Okay. Because I know there's a lot of people that are probably interested in how do you do that and how you can do. Okay. So reporting. And I have not ever seen one of your reports you send to people, but I've heard they're legendary from some mutual friends of ours. What do you think some of the best practices you put into your communication and reports you have to your money partners?
So I do send out reports.
Yep.
I send them out quarterly.
Quarterly clockwork, or
there's delays. Yeah. So quarterly means that there's obviously one in the summer, and sometimes that'll go out, after vacation. So it's not so much always on the clock, but I try to have consistent communications so that they know what's going on. So when I send out the letter, I try to think of what would I as an investor want to know?
And you are an investor in some deals too, right?
Right. And like Russ mentioned, I am on the other side of that. And I know what it's like to not get reports. I know what it's like to get reports that mean nothing. They're full of numbers and rent rolls and stuff that really means nothing to me. I have to still sit there and try and figure out, well, where am I? Am I making money? Am I losing money? What's my ROI? So when I report to my investors, I tell them everything that I think they want to know. And I'll ask them when we're talk in person, is there anything else? But I'll tell them exactly where they are on that day in the investment. And
what does that mean?
So
what does that kind of look like? Do you have kind of like a templated formula, or what do you?
Yeah. So I'll tell them how much cash on cash return they've received to date. If we're talking rent to own, which is the easiest to report on, then there's always cash flow. So there's always a big check to send to them, which I like to mail a letter that I print and sign and handwrite the envelope and put a check in there. I could do everything electronic, but someone said to me once that it's fun to receive a check in the mail. So I have one investor that finally said, can you just put the money in my account? But now I ask them, what do you prefer? But so I give them what their ROI is to that date. I don't speculate on what the house might be worth and I use real numbers today so that, you invested this much, I've given you this much back. Here's your cash on cash return today. We have this much money in the bank. If we had to sell, then it would cost this much. If we had to sell at the same price we bought, but I don't really tie in there, here's where I think the market is today. We have this much appreciation, because those aren't to me real numbers. That's all stuff that goes up and down. So I like to talk.
But you do have a real number in a rent-own basis,
right?
Because you have a contracted sale price.
Contracted sale price. So I base things on that number because that number is somewhat real if they execute the option.
Yes.
So sometimes I'll change it up and I'll break it down and say, if we had to sell today, if they walked away from the investment and we had to sell, I'll give them some feedback. But I like to let them know, here's your return on investment today, cash on cash, based on cash that's back in your pocket, not equity that we have that's in the property that we can't touch. Here's everything that you have access to. Here's where you're sitting. And it's easy with rent to own because there's so much cash flow. You buy for cash on a rent to own deal. You do make money on the back end, but you're really in it for the cash flow.
But you're, in essence, on a rent to own, you're actually making the amount of money on the purchase. You're making the money on the sale almost each month, in essence.
You are. And depending how you structure it, your cash flow can be huge because you're collecting option payments, so to speak, which goes towards their down payment or however you want to structure it at the end. But you might be collecting $600 a month from them on top of the rent that if they exercise the option, you have to give that $600 back to them, but you're selling the house to them at a higher price at the end. So that $600 you've already spent, you don't need it because you've already increased the sale price on the house. So it becomes math at the end. So you might not make any money on the final sale, depending how you structured it. You might have taken installments every month for 12, 24, 96 months, however long you've owned this thing. So you may, at the end of the day, not get a big check. Some deals you do, but it's if you can structure it so you're paid out monthly and subsidize your lifestyle that way. And if you need more money, go do another deal. Or
right. So what? So your follow up is it? It's a check, which I tell you, the greatest follow-up ever is to send a check to somebody, right?
Right.
You could probably just write a handwritten note on a piece of yellow pad paper with a check attached to it, and
no note,
even no note, just a check. Here's your distribution.
Right.
So that, I guess, would be the first best practice, is if you can distribute money is good. Is it back and front? Is it 2 or 3 pages, or how many?
I format it to fit on one page. I want it to be short and sweet. I want it to be very black and white. Here's where you're sitting today. Here's the money you put in. Here's the money you've got back. I'll give a third page of a breakdown of all the money that they've received back. So it'll show, here's the 90,000 you put in initially. Here's the 30,000 you got back a month later. Here's the every 3 months, 2,000 or whatever I sent you every 3 months, whatever that number is, so that they can look at it and say, oh, wow, I've made a lot of money, and every 3 months I got a check. And so there's always 3 things: a check, a breakdown of every payment that they've given me or I've given them, and a very short and sweet report. And I don't really go into personal stuff in the report. I don't say, I'm on vacation right now writing this. Like I just give them the numbers and save the conversation for when we talk in person.
Do you give them any market information or things you're seeing on the street or any of that kind of stuff? Or
on my rent to own, I don't. I'll give them feedback on the tenant and how that relationship is going.
Yep.
But I won't so much look at the market, because at that point in time where we've structured a certain way, we know how it's going to play out or how it might play out if they walk away. And before we ever got into the deal, I've given them a pro forma of what the deal looks like. And I've also broken out 10 scenarios that might happen, your what if scenarios. Here's what happens if they walk away the first week into the deal and we have to put it back on the market and sell it and pay out lawyers and all this. And I'll take your 10 most common scenarios that I could think of and break it down for them so that they know, here's my worst case, here's my best case, the deal I'm getting into, but here's 10 other scenarios and what my return would look like in all those cases. And for the most part, if you're structuring this type of deal correctly and you're getting enough security from the tenant up front, they may break even, but they're not really at risk at too much in these unless you've done something wrong or the market has gone horribly wrong on you.
Right. Which, not to say the market's gone horribly wrong, but it's been a tough slugging the last little while. And that's probably the reason why some of your rent owns are now into 7-8 years, is maybe the value of the house hasn't got there yet.
Yeah, it's habits. So what they say they're going to do and what they actually do, and some people do it, some people don't. And
it probably has more to do with the ability of the person to qualify for a mortgage, not the market, in essence. The market really doesn't have as much to do.
There's been a few that the market wasn't quite at the price that they had agreed to pay, and they didn't have the capacity to make up that difference, and their credit wasn't strong enough. So at that point, you have two options. Well, you have more than two, but you can extend the deal and say, we'll wait until the market changes or you save up more money. I could lower my price. If I just want out of the deal, I could. I'm still making money. I can lower the price and sell it for less than I thought we were going to make, but still profitable for everyone. Usually they just want to continue, which is fine for me because of the cash flow.
Yeah.
I've never had anyone actually walk away from a deal. I know it happens and people have that, but
so by and large, you're, I guess the big thing with your follow-up system is really just being on top of the bookkeeping and having the numbers available. That's probably the biggest thing is, the majority of it is having the numbers where you can report. If the numbers aren't ready to report, then that just...
I have a copy of my QuickBooks file and I keep the books up to date. And I do that on my personal side too. I've always really managed finances and I know where every dollar has gone. I could tell you how much I've spent on coffee this year. Like everything's broken down. So that goes into the business.
Do you do that yourself or do you hire that out?
I do that myself.
How do you do that? No, I'm here, guys. Time out. I'm going to get an education here because this is probably one of the things that I'm not on top of as I should be. And if my wife is watching, I hope she is. I'm learning, honey. By the way, how do you do that? What do you have? Do you have some hacks or some systems, or what do you do, or is it just a discipline?
There's a program that used to exist and still does, but it's not updated anymore, called Microsoft Money, and they retired it with the Sunset Edition, so it's free to download. And I've used that since, 2004, maybe. So the last 14 years or so. And I loved it at the time. And it used to be more automated. It used to be able to connect to your bank and pull everything in. And now I have to log into my credit card online. You can still download into Microsoft Money. All those transactions go into there. And if you've set it up, then they're all categorized and it knows like, okay, this one was dining out, this one was this one was that. So I try to put every purchase through a credit card because I get reward points and it's easy to track when it goes into my finance program. So it's really not that time intensive. It's
not really the whiz bang gee whiz application more so than the actual discipline to just do it.
Yeah. And it does, if I forget about it for a few months, it's annoying because you don't remember what you spent money on. So it does take discipline to do it. But for me, when it comes in really handy for me is when I have to return something and it's like, where's the receipt for that? When did I buy it? And I can just go do a keyword search for that item. If it's a big ticket item that I needed a receipt for, and it's like, oh yeah, I bought it in October at Costco, and then I can...
And I imagine doing this, the business and the rent-own business and stuff like that, there's probably a lot of similar transactions, a lot of memorized transactions that are almost the exact same thing each month, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Things shouldn't change that often, right? And if they are, then there's an issue typically.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So. What about any tips or hacks or just things? Do you put it into a calendar to remind yourself when to do it? Like, how long does it take you to put the follow-up package together typically?
Probably takes me an hour per property to put it together. So it can be a little time intensive putting these packages together, and it's easy in the summertime to not want to do it. But at the same time, if that's all I have to do and I don't have to go out there and do any other presentations trying to raise money, if I just keep my investors happy with this one discipline, then that's not really asking too much of me.
Well, and and you are getting you have 75% ownership of there, so you got to do some to earn it. I'm joking.
I have to do something with my time.
I'm teasing you. I think how you earn it is because you have amazing deals.
So there's another thing that I do. As far as keeping investors in the loop is I love Notepad. That's my favorite tool on the computer is Notepad. So I have a file structure. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place here, but I'll get back to the notepad thing. So my file structure in my filing cabinet is the one that I learned from Navaz Murji, the accountant, with the different colored folders. So red is for tenants, green is for finances, yellow's for miscellaneous, white's investors, blue is legal. So that physically exists in my filing cabinet, and I scan everything in there. So I have a digital filing cabinet, which is labeled the exact same thing. Here's the property, here's a red folder, here's all the PDFs in there. That automatically synchronizes. I like Google Drive. So that synchronizes to Google Drive. I give my investors read-only access to their folder in Google Drive. So they have a PDF copy of every single piece of paper that exists in my filing cabinet. I also have access to every single piece of paper in that filing cabinet when I'm on the road. It's from my cell phone. So the filing cabinet could burn down and I won't lose anything, or someone can ask me, what's this? And I can pull it up on my pocket. So that's a bit of a discipline, scanning everything and putting it in the folders.
Right. But that's, you're choosing you want to live elsewhere.
Right.
So you have to create systems that you can have access to. Business doesn't stop while you're in
access
Florida.
To the information while you're away. So in the digital version of my filing cabinet, I've got a notepad file in the red folder called tenants. And that's where every interaction with that client goes into. And it's date and time stamped manually, and then just point form what we discussed. And that gets saved, and the investment partner, if they're logged into Google Drive, gets a little update that this file's been updated. They can go and read that notepad file in read-only mode so they don't accidentally hit delete and sabotage my files. So they know exactly what's happening. They're not waiting 3 months to find out. They can go in and read that file. They'll get the picture. So there may actually be no new information when they send them a report because they've been following, or I have investors that will look at the joint bank account and they'll know exactly every transaction that's going in and out. And if there's something different, like it's an annual accounting fee or something, they'll call up and say, well, what was this transaction? Because
well, I guess there's a couple points. You said a lot there. So 100%, how about the most transparent you can ever have is give access to everything.
Right.
And the more you give access to, probably the less they will ask for.
Right.
Right. And they may ask a few times until they get the flow and they get the system, and then until they get the point where they can trust, not that they don't trust you, but it probably will take a few months for them to go, well, Daniel's on top of this because look at all the stuff that's in there. Boom, boom, boom. I read about 5 things. Well, Daniel's got it. Right.
Yeah.
Well, so really just,
and
I'm trying to figure the polite word. I'm sorry, guys, for the language here. Just get our shit together. Really, just be on top of it.
Exactly.
Really.
And as far as there's going to be positive and negative conversations with clients, but in this way, they're reading the files. So if a tenant loses their job, they've already read it before I ever talk to them. So I don't even have to break news to them. It's like you said, full transparency. They know exactly what's happening before I even have to have that conversation with them. So it's a way of kind of breaking the ice if they're reading, as far as, I'll call them and say, so-and-so lost his job and, he's not going to be able to pay this month or whatever. And we'll have to use the reserve. And not that I have to make those calls, but it just makes it easier knowing that I'm fully transparent and I'm not hiding anything from them. I don't hold all the answers and I give you little windows into this world every 3 months. It's, they know everything that I know.
Now, and I know for a fact some people watching are going to just be going, they're just going to have that knot in the pit of the stomach of going, oh, my paperwork, everything is it's a nightmare and it's a mess. What would you offer to somebody to help them, maybe give them some kind of a either kick in the backside or an inspiration on how to just lean into it and just get it done or outsource or whatever? What would you offer if some coaching, if somebody was just saying that it's a mess?
You can hire someone to do your scanning for you. So if that's your bottleneck, and to teach them your your format, whether how you want to name the files. And I mean, you can hire people to do that. I do it often enough that it doesn't pile up on me.
Do you put it in your calendar and do it once a week, or how do you?
No, if a piece of mail comes in, I'll go to my mailbox and I'll grab all the mail. And at that point, because again, I learned from a good friend of Az, the accountant, you should never touch a piece of paper more than once. So if I'm going to open it, and I should do something with it. If I'm not prepared to do something with it, don't open it now. So when I open it, I'm ready to scan it. I've already set up a synchronization program on my laptop that puts it onto Google Drive, so I don't manually do that. It also backs up to another server and that. So all I have to do is hit the button on my scanner, goes in, name the file, drop it in the right folder. My investor has it immediately. It's backed up for safekeeping, and I have access to it later. I put it in my my paper filing cabinet and never have to look at it again.
Wow. So what kind of scanner do you have?
So a good friend who you also know, David Sandbrand.
Yeah.
He recommended I think it's a Fujitsu.
Fujitsu, yeah, ScanSnap.
Yeah, that's the one. Expensive.
The 6,500. Yeah, they're like $650.
Yeah,
that's lifesaver.
Well worth the investment. It double-sided. It'll scan everything in a minute.
Yes.
You can have it do individual pages. You can have it, do every 2 pages as a different PDF file. Anything you want to do with it.
We're down to 1.5 file cabinets now, and we're just now going back. We made the commitment. Well, I should say, Crean made the commitment 2 years ago now that everything was going to be digital.
Right.
Now when a rainy day project, she starts going back into the archives to do things as well.
Yeah,
but
it's so handy once it's done.
It is, and then once it gets indexed, type in. What was the other day? I had to show interest, line of credit, Scotia line of credit on blah 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 property. Boom, all the files came up.
Yeah.
Boom.
It's amazing.
Compress it. There you go. There it is. All in one place.
I was at I also scan my stuff on my personal side, not just the business. What I do in business is a duplication of my personal life. I was at a kid's soccer game the other day and someone said, how much do you pay on your house insurance? I was like, well, hang on. And I was able to pull up all my renewals on my house insurance for the past 5 years. And they're looking at me like, what the heck? Like,
who's this freak?
Why do you have 5 years worth of house insurance statements in your pocket?
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, I like to know that stuff.
Yeah.
I like to be able to answer my own questions.
Well,
and I'm not home all the time. I like vacationing.
Discipline equals freedom. Because you've done this and you have all this and you have the discipline to get it done, you can't afford to take the time away because you know that it's all taken care of. You can leave guilt free because it's taken care of, right? And you know where to go get it. It's not a big giant pile of papers sitting somewhere else. Wow.
Very true.
So we got one more segment we're going to dive into. Daniel is on to a new adventure here. And I hope you're cool. I hope it's not too soon to share this new adventure that you're going to be going on. And then we're going to just do a real quick wrap up with a little bit of final inspiration here as well. But we're just going to reset the cameras here one more time. So we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Coming down the final stretch here. So it's a good thing I reached out to you because in our pre-interview conversation, you shared some big news that's upcoming. You're going to be moving very soon, and you're going to be taking your real estate skills somewhere else. But you still have your portfolio here, right?
Yep. Well,
so what's this new adventure you're getting on here, Daniel?
So my family's decided that we love California and summer so much that we're just gonna, instead of vacationing there all the time, we're just gonna move there. So we're in the middle of tying up all of our loose ends here so that we can move down there. And
so you're still going to own your properties here, right?
I'm doing some pruning, but I'm going to keep
culling the herd. Is right. Yeah.
It's a good time to kind of simplify all aspects of my life and seeing what works and what doesn't. And another very smart guy, Steve McKnight from Australia, used to talk about the velocity of money. And I believe in that a lot, and I look at what's performing and what isn't, and so I'm only getting rid of stuff that I think I can do.
Yes.
do better with elsewhere with the capital and move it and turn it a little quicker. And
Well, I think you've also proven that your rent-owned business you have here, and all the properties are in Alberta,
yes,
primarily the Calgary area. Do they other areas or?
between Calgary and Edmonton.
Okay.
So, and a few in between.
And you've proven that you can do that for anywhere you're on holidays all at the same time, so you can still have that. What are you gonna be doing now in California?
I'm going to be in real estate, but I'm going to take everything that I've learned over the past 12 years, mostly from Russell. You've been a great teacher.
Oh, well, thank you. I say thank you tongue in cheek. It's all you, by the way.
I'm going to be doing more buy, renovate, and sell, kind of a flipping model on a higher level, I wouldn't say high end, but very well done renovations.
In what part of California?
In Southern California.
Southern California?
So around somewhere between Orange County and San Diego. I haven't 100% made up my mind where. Could be Palm Springs, but somewhere in that triangle.
Right. So you're looking where you want to live based on where you want to live, or are you kind of just looking at the market that's best ripe for that type of a
little bit of both.
Yeah.
So I'm getting my realtor license so that I can get the commissions on buying and selling, since I'll be doing that so often. And that'll kind of be the fail safe where if this flip doesn't make anything, at least I got some commissions out of it.
So you're going to be like the TV shows we see on HGTV. It's going to be Daniel and family down the snowbird down south.
I'll tell you, one of the reasons I want to switch to this model is, again, lifestyle. If I'm buying, renovating, and selling property, that can be turned on and off very easily. If you want out, you sell your properties or you list them, hope they sell, and then you just don't buy anything else for a little while.
Yep.
A lot of what I've done in the past can consume you, where you're kind of tied to it. And I want something that's a little easier to turn on and off. I want something that the kids can be involved in. I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. I want to be able to give them a hammer to either help build something or tear it apart, depending what stage of the rental we're doing.
Are you going to do a lot of the work yourself? You're a very, very handy person. You just showed me your dock that you built out there. Fantastic work and all that kind of stuff.
I think it's a benefit that I know how to do it, but I don't want to do it. So on my own house, I'm going to do my own improvements. Yeah. I'm going to hire teams to do all the work, because I don't want to buy myself a job. I just want to live the lifestyle. So it's going to take a while to put a good team together, but I want something that I can turn on and off a little bit easier.
And this is something that you've been planning. I just get the sense that you're just a meticulous, pragmatic, step-by-step kind of a guy. This has been a year in the works, hasn't it? This hasn't been a flighty. This hasn't been a fly-by-night. Okay, honey, let's do it tomorrow, right?
It's been more like 10 years in the works.
Okay, good.
But it's finally time to make the move. Yeah. But there's been different things that my wife and I have done in the past 10 years to make the move easier.
Citizenships, have you got those kind of things, or is it going to be difficult? 9
years ago, she wrote her U.S. nursing license so that she can be an employee down there. So that will lead to other options for us to stay more permanently. Last year, we went down and opened up some credit cards and bank accounts. So we have over 1.5 years of US credit right now. So when we go down, we're not starting from scratch. So that some things take pre-planning. Canadians start at zero down there. So anyone thinking they ever want to live in the US should go to a US bank and open up a US credit card immediately and start building a credit history, because having zero credit is very awkward in life.
Yeah. So you're going to apply for the financing. It'd be no different than a fix and flip model here, just it's in a different country.
Yeah. So I have investment partners that are very on board with this idea, and they're eager to qualify and put money into the properties. So it'll be the same model where I'll have joint venture partners doing certain things.
Instead of taking 2 to 7 years, you're going to be doing it in 5 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Nice. What's the goal? Do you have a goal? Have you written out some big goals of how many properties you want to do and things like that?
Nothing's in stone yet, because we're moving more for lifestyle. So I don't want to I don't want to pile on it too. I want to build our life on purpose, break it apart here and put it back together on purpose without complicating things. So I want to structure lifestyle and have the business kind of work in that lifestyle.
Well, no one I know, and I actually have another conversation lined up very shortly with a guy who it's all about, it has to be fit with the lifestyle. And it has to all work within the family. And not just that you're going to be so crazy burnt out and busy and all that kind of stuff, but nobody I know who does this better than you do.
Thank you.
What advice would you give? So to wrap that last thing up, congratulations. I'm very proud of you. And I can't wait to see all the stuff that you're doing. I want to hear all about it. I want you to keep us posted on the projects and things that you're doing. And I just know that you're going to just crush it. So I just know that because I just know who you are. How do you, and some people are wanting to know, because at the end of the day, it's not just real estate. You just buy all these properties and own all this stuff and you're just stressed out of your gourd that you just hate real estate after 20 years. That sucked. I hate it. Right?
Right. Yeah.
How do you be a real estate investor on a full-time basis and still have a life? What was been some of your tips or inspiration that you would offer somebody if they asked you that question?
I think, again, it goes into planning and doing everything on purpose and not letting things just happen. So when I structured the rent-to-own business, I didn't want to create a job. And I structured it in a way where the client would come to me. Once we're ready for them to pick out a house, they go shopping with my realtor, so I'm not involved in that process. My mortgage broker would talk to them and figure out their financing, how long of a term we need. I'm not involved in that process. My investment partner will, fund it, and they'll go to the lawyers and they'll sign the purchase agreement. I'm not physically involved in that part of the process either. And the same thing happens when you go to sell this at the end. We already have an agreement in place to sell it. We know the price. There's no realtors involved. They go to their lawyer to buy it. The investment partner goes to their lawyer to sell it. I'm not physically involved in that process either. So I have never seen any of my rent-owned properties. I've never met any of my clients. I've done everything remotely. Sometimes I'll actually be in Alberta. Sometimes I won't be, but I have no need to physically do any of those things. I coordinate everything, but I'm not physically present for any of those actions.
Wow. You said a word, you probably didn't realize it, but if you're watching, you heard the word process at least 4 to 5 times in that little segment there. So if you really think about it, you're just the person who puts the process together.
Right.
And then it adheres to the process getting done. And other people are the ones who are responsible to complete the work.
Right.
Wow.
And that's exactly what I want to move into the next business. I want to be the project coordinator and run around and make sure the trades are doing what they're supposed to and everything's going according to plan. But I definitely don't want to be swinging a hammer for 14 hours a day.
Well, I'm doing a renovation project. Actually, it's going on right now while I'm out here talking with you. I have not yet done anything. I've been there just take a look at because it's one of the first ones. And quite frankly, thank goodness I'm not touching a hammer because I would take the value down. But it is all about the putting the deal together and orchestrating and being the orchestra leader of the marching band. And I don't think anybody does it better than you do. It's absolutely brilliant. So on the final two final questions, before I do get to those questions, number one is I just wanted to acknowledge I'm so grateful that you took the time to make this, because I know how much family is for you and for your children and your wife to go to the splash park today, just to go. I know it's fun for them, but I'm grateful that you made the time. And I'm grateful that you opened your beautiful home to us here. And I'm grateful for you just sharing everything that you've shared. You've mentioned so many people whose shoulders that you've stood on, as giants that you've stood on. I now consider you a giant. And there's going to be a lot of people standing on your shoulders. And I know you don't like to be in the public eye, but I'd like to see you a little more in the public eye because I think you have a lot to share. I really do. And I can't wait to see what the next chapter is being written for you. So I'm just honored. And I'm, first of all, just a big congratulations.
Thank you.
And what would you offer just one final, maybe an inspiration if somebody's sitting here and they're watching this, maybe they're feeling a little stuck or they like what they've heard. So that's the final question I'm going to ask. Okay. Before that, are you okay if anyone wants to reach out to you and maybe ask you a question or something like that? Or where do you hang out? Website or what?
So you mentioned it's hard to get a hold of me, which is true. I don't hang out on social media. I have a Facebook account. I don't log in. It's funny. One of my friends who knows I don't use Facebook, I was in California with a different SIM card, and I have the two-factor authentication set up with Facebook where it has to text you a 6-digit code to be able to log in. And I didn't have the SIM card with me. So he sent me a private message on Facebook, which does email me saying you have a message, but I couldn't read it because I couldn't get the SIM card to get the 6-digit. And I got back and I said, you know, I don't use Facebook. Like, what were you thinking? And he's like, oh, I just wanted to bug you. It's like, well, I didn't read it. And it took me 3 weeks after I got back to remember to go in and read it. So that's not a good way to get a hold of me. You can send me an email. It's daniel@gotrealestate.ca.
And you check it only once a week?
Ish? Give or take.
So daniel@gotrealestate.ca.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. What would be a final inspirational message you'd like to leave for everyone watching this of giving people, well, not just hope, but just giving people that, of what some of the biggest things you've learned over the past dozen years?
Well, first, I'd just like to acknowledge that I've known you for almost those dozen, probably 11 years or so. And you've just been an open book and I've learned so much from you. And I really do appreciate the lessons that you've shared. And you used to be up on stage at a lot of events I went to. And, it's a lot of what I know is because of you. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I wouldn't be where I am today if I'd never met Russell Westcott.
Oh, thank you very well. I just love your family for one. Like you're top to bottom, your whole family is just amazing. So
thank you. So inspiration for everyone. I think what really changed for me was I used to try to do too much and I would listen to what everyone said, which everyone has good opinions and tips of what works for them and what other people should be doing. But I tried to do everything. And you mentioned that I don't like to work long hours. I used to have, 3 jobs. I used to be a crazy workaholic. So now I realize that's not me. But I used to be a member of meeting groups that would meet for lunch and breakfast once or twice a week. Business things, Toastmasters, all kinds of groups. And I was busy, but nothing was happening. I was just busy doing what everyone told me I should be doing and nothing was really happening for me. Then I decided to work on myself, and you can do a lot of that on your own for free buy some good books. You recommended Russell, one of my favorite authors of all time, Robin Sharma, wrote The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, and a lot of other amazing books. So for the price of a book, you can really improve your own life and work on yourself. But I asked for help. I hired a coach. I made a commitment that I was going to work on myself. And one thing I learned from that was I needed to simplify my life and do more things for me. So I got rid of everything. I got rid of the networking meetings that I was doing that weren't actually productive, but I thought they were because someone said I should be there doing them. I got rid of the Toastmasters, which is a great organization and it's good, but it wasn't a fit for me at that time in my life. And I just dropped everything, simplified, got into yoga. And right around that time, everything started happening for me. The law of attraction, clients started coming to me, investors started coming to me. And I think it was me letting go and stop trying to be everything and to everyone and just kind of focusing on myself when things really started to shape up and actually turn into that vision board that I had created. So I would stop trying to do everything. Do what makes you comfortable. I used to go to meetings in a suit. I hate suits. I wasn't comfortable wearing a suit, but someone said, if you want to raise money, wear a suit. I didn't raise a penny wearing a suit. Some people do. I didn't. Yep. If I wear what I'm comfortable in, then people are attracted to that. So just try to be yourself and work on your confidence. And that's probably the best message that I can give out there.
Put on your own oxygen mask first before you start helping other people.
Exactly.
Take care of yourself first. Wow. Couldn't have said that better myself. And thank you for sharing that. Who would have thunk sometimes in order to get forward, get ahead, you have to let go of a lot of things. And that was your biggest realization. So Once again, Daniel, thank you very much. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Guys, stay tuned for the next lesson that's upcoming in the next interview. If you want, reach out to Daniel. He gave you his email address there. And I can't wait to share the next interview with you as well. All right, guys. Bye for now. I sure hope you enjoyed this in-depth training video, and I applaud you for sticking around right to the very end. I believe in people that show up, put in the work, put in the time, and effort should be rewarded. If you're interested in taking the next step, if you're interested in going deeper and mastering what you just learned about in this training video, I encourage you to check out the Raising Capital Academy. So if you have found that you've received some value from the YouTube channel, or maybe you've listened to a podcast, you're only scratching the surface. That truly is just 1/10 of 1% of all the content and materials that have been created that are waiting for you on the other side. So I encourage you to check out the Raising Capital Academy. There's more than 100+ hours of video content, audio content, exclusive training material for those that are interested in taking the next step, those that are interested in going towards mastery, those that are interested in moving forward with velocity. So I would encourage you, wherever you're watching this video, around this video will be a link where you can check out all the details of the Raising Capital Academy. After you've checked out all the details on that page and you're interested in moving forward with velocity, click on the link that will take you towards the application. This is by application only. This is a community program and is for serious action takers only. So if you want to step up your game, if you have goals and dreams and aspirations for more, if you'd like to make a difference in the financial futures of the most important people in your life, I highly encourage you to check out the Raising Capital Academy. Click on that link and you'll be taken to the next step in the process to see if you qualify to take the next step forward for you. Hope to see you on the other side. Bye for now. Well, I sure hope you enjoyed that video. 2 simple things to do from here. If you're interested in continuing your journey, interested in continuing to become a successful real estate investor, just below where you're watching this, there will be an opportunity for you to subscribe. And if you're interested in continuing your journey, there is a hand-selected video over here for you. It's been hand-selected for you to keep your journey going forward. Thank you very much.